Hello and welcome to the Extra Point podcast. I am Neil Reynolds, joined by Darren Fletcher, and very soon, we think, to be joined by Vernon Kay. And Fletch, we're going to look back on what is always a busy week in the offseason. We're at a week on now from the start of free agency, the start of the new NFL league year. This is when teams are going to get a lot of their business done and spend and sometimes overspend on players.
I spent a very excited 48 hours having a look who was going where, who was costing what, which teams were getting better, which teams were getting worse. But I think the NFL are brilliant, I always think, at finding something to keep us interested when there's actually nothing to keep us interested.
Yep.
And I think they'll be quite disappointed that free agency this year only lasted 48 hours. I think they might need to have a rethink because it was there and then it was gone and it was like, But yeah, it's fascinating because it is a chance to get better. The concern I have is, as a Bears fan, we tend to win the off-season most seasons, but we can't win the regular season. So I think the caveat always is, and I bet you'll agree on this, don't read too much into what the free agency brings you because you've still got to back that up with good coaching and good drafts as well. You can't get all the way on free agency alone.
Not every free agent signing is a Saquon Barkley for sure. As the Dolphins, we've won many an off season, and as we're talking of winning, we're all winning now because we are joined by Vernon Kay. And Vern, well, we just got asked where you've been late on parade. Honestly, I can't believe it.
I do apologise, gentlemen. I'm having internet problems. I've ordered a new Ethernet cable attachment which snapped in the post.
Can I say something before you come back in? Who uses an Ethernet cable in 2025 apart from you?
Well, our Wi-Fi... Listen, I've got kids, so you know that everyone's bang on the devices. And even if they're at school, the devices are all still up and running. So our Wi-Fi signal is dreadful. So if I start getting glitchy, it's because I'm on the Wi-Fi. I'm not hardwiring today.
I remember when I worked in NFL Europe, I used to have to unplug the main landline and put in the old AOL dial-up. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I'm picturing you now, Vern, doing that.
Yeah, that's me.
We were wondering because, like, you probably got the super-duper high-speed Wi-Fi, and then when you went to Radio 2, you had to have Ethernet cables and plug it in. And is it kind of going old school on us?
Yeah, I was going to actually use the, what was it called in the olden days? The ISDN line. I've still got one of them in the garage.
In case you don't know, Vern, Germany win the 2014 World Cup, just in case you're not quite sure.
Cheers, pal. Yeah. Is Dan Marino still playing?
Oh, don't. We wish. I wish. Right, listen, we haven't done very much yet, Vern. We're just setting the scene for the first week of the free agency in the NFL. Before that, there was a couple of trades as well. Obviously, the quarterback dominoes start to fall. We saw Sam Darnold go from Minnesota to Seattle. That was on the back of Geno Smith being traded to the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Jets are going to roll the dice on another quarterback in Justin Fields. Fletch, on Sam Darnold, what do you think? Because everyone's looking at the last two games that were bad, but I thought he had a very, very good season for Minnesota, but obviously recency bias. Are you worried about this one for Seattle?
I'm slightly worried whether they get better enough. So whether he's a big enough upgrade from Geno Smith to what they get now. And I'm a bit concerned about the price. I saw something the other day. There was this wild suggestion that they can get out of the contract after the first year, essentially. But the first year, he gets $37 million. I can't recall an NFL transaction where you paid somebody $37 million for 1 year and then drafted a quarterback the following year. So the money that he's getting, he's there for the long haul. I would like to see a bigger sample size. I think he'd got a very good offensive coach in Kevin O'Connell. He got Justin Jefferson and a really good receiving core. He got a really good offensive line and a running game. And a lot of this isn't in Seattle when he gets there. So I think he's got less tools, and I think Darnold has to be better next season than he was this season to justify the trade. I think he's a gamble. I think the Geno Smith one's a gamble. I think the Darnold one's a gamble. I think the least gamble that anybody's taken is Fields, because you know exactly what he is. You know his limitations. He's not costing you a great deal, and he's clearly a stopgap. So you can move from him. You could draft one this year. But the Darnold thing, Vern, just worries me at the price. I just think he's kind of had 1 year and all of a sudden he's up there earning money like Pat Mahomes. It's outrageous.
Well, you'd also ask the question, prior to the move, was he aware that DK Metcalf was going to go? You know, because if you're looking at the artillery that the Seahawks have got, Geno Smith and DK Metcalf are your two big standout names in the offense, and they're both no longer there. And you replace them with a quarterback who has, throughout his career, struggled. Let's be fair, he's struggled. And then you go to a team like the Vikings that have got a pretty decent wide receiving core. And as you know, quarterbacks and good wide receivers in NFL history go down as iconic pairings and legendary partnerships. Because if you look at every great quarterback that's in the Hall of Fame, they've had at least one standout wide receiver. And when it comes to fantasy football time and we're picking our players, you pick a quarterback who's got a receiving core. You pick a receiver who's got a quarterback. You can't just have a good quarterback who you think, oh yeah, he's going to be great. You've got to look at what he's throwing to, because that's what makes quarterbacks great. That's what makes receivers great.
Neil, let me ask you then, how much was last season down to Kevin O'Connell, the improvement in Sam Darnold, and how sustainable is that? Now he's away from Kevin O'Connell and he's got to stand on his own 2 feet. O'Connell widely regarded as one of the best offensive minds in the whole of the league.
Yeah, I think he was in an excellent situation. And I don't know if that situation's ever going to be as good again, but I accept, like, Justin Jefferson was tremendous and is amazing, and he's going to make any quarterback look good. The only thing I would say is it wasn't like he was just throwing up jump balls to Justin Jefferson. Like, I saw throws in week 2. I was there in Minnesota in week 2 against the 49ers. He was dicing up one of what we thought at the time was one of the best defenses in the NFL. Incredible back shoulder throws at Lambeau Field against the Packers. So he had some really big moments. The worry is, and the bit that's, and recency bias is kind of dangerous sometimes, but the 2 biggest games of the year, Detroit and the Rams, indecisive, holding the ball. Was he seeing ghosts? You know, that kind of thing again. That's the worry. But he was special at times, and special because of himself. In a good situation, yes. But I think it's an upgrade on Geno. I agree with you, Fletch. I'm not sure it's a massive one, but I think it is an upgrade. And if they can get out of it after a year, I think it's worth having a look.
You're not the wire, Vern. You're 37 mil. You're not getting out of it after a year. You've signed him to be your long-term quarterback. I know you can get out, but you wouldn't
want
do
to.
that.
No, you wouldn't want to. No,
they are kind of stuck with it for a period of time.
Well, let me throw this into the mix. We just saw in the Super Bowl the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely dispatch the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes didn't have a chance. I'm going to throw this in there because I'm extremely biased. If you look at Seattle's defense, it's darn good. It's got a tremendous, tremendous selection of defensive backs. Our friend Adam Durdy is part of that defensive team. And I think if, as we know in football, if your defense stands up and stands up well, your offense doesn't really have to do that much. Do you know what I mean? Get to 20 points and your defense will do the rest.
They did win. They won 10 games last year. Let me ask you this then, fellas, as we look for the latest quarterback domino to fall. Aaron Rodgers.
Oh,
Fletch.
leave it.
Oh, go on then. Does he go to Pittsburgh?
No, he retires.
Okay, well,
his career at New York was an absolute abomination, and I apologise.
I hadn't finished the options yet.
No, he doesn't need any. He doesn't need any. I'll tell you what his options are, right? A resort in Florida, or a beautiful Malibu mansion. Pick either East Coast or West Coast. Hang up the cleats. Go and put your helmets in a beautiful cabinet with the Super Bowl that you've won, and leave it. He was dreadful, absolutely shocking. He couldn't read the road. He was awful, Neil. Come on, you can't back him up, Fletch.
I'm not. I'm just Fletch. Let me just give you the options: Pittsburgh,
no,
the New York Giants,
retirement,
or this is the curveball that's out there: a 1-year stint again, following the Brett Favre path. A 1-year stint with the Minnesota Vikings. I don't see why you delay the JJ McCarthy arrival another year, but that seems to be gathering some pace.
I think Vernon is intimating that Aaron Rodgers is as broken as his Ethernet cable. I think, though.
And as old.
But I think NFL need dictates that he's going to play, because I look at these teams. Myles Garrett's just agreed to $40 million a year to stay in Cleveland. They must have told him they're going to find a quarterback from somewhere.
They have. I think he knows that, yep.
So there's one team, whether they draft Shedeur Sanders, whether they get the chance to draft Cam Ward, or whether they've got to take Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. The New York Giants are in the same mix. Did they look at Shedeur Sanders? Can they find a way to get to Cam Ward? The odd team out at the minute to me is Pittsburgh, because they've just made this big splash. DK Metcalf to go with George Pickens. Never had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. And at the moment, the last time I looked, I'm second on the depth chart in Pittsburgh to play quarterback next year. And the only reason I'm second, Neil, is that Vernon throws a better ball than me, and he's at the top of the depth chart at the moment in Pittsburgh. So I think there are going to be desperate organisations post-draft, and he might not get a deal done until then, but I think he's the domino. I think when he goes wherever he goes, then Russell Wilson gets to go, and then we start to look at what the draft could potentially look like as well. I don't think Minnesota's a starter. The last thing J.J. McCarthy needs is Aaron Rodgers, but I could certainly see him go. I could certainly see him playing in the black and gold of Pittsburgh.
Me too.
Throw into to DK Metcalf and to George Pickens.
That's the one that makes sense. I mean, if his only option ends up being the Giants, then he might as well retire. But I think he can do something with Pittsburgh, and they will feel that that's an upgrade on Russell Wilson. But Vern, I kind of get, because Vernon, I get your point when you're talking about the play on the field. But when you bring him in, there's going to be a lot more that goes with it in 2025.
I don't know, Neil. I honestly don't know. I know the status that he carries within the league. We understand that, all right? He's a very unique personality. He's a very unique player. He's an accomplished player. We've seen him go through the ranks. He spent a lot of time on the sidelines watching Brett Favre and learning the game. I get that. I totally get that. But we saw him live in the UK last season, and he was god-awful. His passes weren't laser-like. They weren't strong out the arm. They were 1 or 2 yards off. I just felt he was extremely, extremely bad. And he was seriously lacking in confidence. And that's what you need as a quarterback. Just retire, Aaron. There's no need. He's got the money.
So let me throw this to both of you then. Let me play devil's advocate. What if he needs a year from the torn Achilles to get mobility back, get strength back, and get confidence back? And what if it does follow a Brett Favre path? When Brett Favre went to the Jets, he looked nothing like Brett Favre. When he went to Minnesota, seemingly as a weaker quarterback the year later, he played like an MVP and got them to an NFC Championship game. Might the circumstances that Rodgers goes into in Pittsburgh be more beneficial to him as a player a year removed from the Achilles tendon injury than he had all year in a very dysfunctional room in New York? Where, all right, he added to the dysfunction, I'll give you that, but he could be in a better situation.
I think he will be. I think he's got another year in him. I think the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, I thought he played pretty decent. I think if he went to Minnesota, I don't know, I'd be excited by that. Well, put it this way, I'd scratch my head and say, my goodness, you're kicking J.J. McCarthy another year down the road. But he was a young quarterback coming out. He's got years ahead of him. I don't know. I think that'd be fascinating. Maybe I'm just playing for the headline. Maybe I just love that drama that's going to come with it. But I think he's got more gas left in the tank.
Well, I'm going to say this. I'm not going to sit on the fence. Aaron Rodgers will not win 50% of the games this coming season. I'm saying it. I'm saying it. He looked absolutely dreadful. And the only reason why you'd have Aaron Rodgers on your team is to help a young quarterback. That's it. Simple. Put him on your coaching staff.
Well, but he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. He's never done that. He just likes to look after himself, and he says, "You learn from me. You look and watch."
There you go.
I think he would do well. Let's stick with another quarterback. I want to ask you both about Joe Burrow and player power in the NFL, because the Cincinnati Bengals ended up re-signing both their wide receivers. Jamar Chase, 4 years, $161 million. T. Higgins, we thought they might tag and trade. They signed him 4 years, $115 million. Between Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, Vernon, they've got 44% of their salary cap tied up in 3 players, albeit 3 elite players. But this, by all accounts, was Burrow saying, "Give me my guys." What do you think?
We've seen what Joe Burrow can do. Joe Burrow's taken the Bengals to a Super Bowl. Let's not forget that. Joe Burrow's a great quarterback when he's got what he needs, and he's got that. And I think the problem with the Bengals' offense is it's not dynamic enough. You don't question. It's a pretty obvious offense, in my opinion. They got rid of their running back,
Mixon,
Joe Mixon, and I think that was a bad trade, in my opinion. I think the Bengals needed him because he had a blowout season, really, didn't he? At the Texans, he played really well, And I think that Joe Burrow, now that he's got what he wants, he's got to prove himself. And because he's got to prove himself, it's that old adage of, is there pressure on a quarterback? Now that you've got what you want, what more do you need? You have to go and succeed now. Take us back to the game. Take us back to the show.
He can't complain about the
Can't
offensive
complain.
line
So-
or the defense. He's spent all the money on his receivers and himself.
Exactly, Neil. So whose fault is it going to be? It's going to be Joe Burrow's fault. So he's got to perform with his two new wide receivers who are under contract now.
Fletch, what do you think about player power in the NFL, in sport in generally? Is that an indication of what we've seen here?
Well, I've got to talk about the specific case in point before I look at the overview of player power. They scored 472 points in the regular season.
Oh, here we go. Come on,
last
Fletch.
season, and they gave up 434. They won
Crikey.
9 games, and they won 9 games and scored all that and conceded all that with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. They've tried this baby before, and it doesn't work. There are far too many issues. A, they're going to get Joe Burrow killed if they don't build an offensive line. And sometimes you've got to put a lot of your cap into a decent left tackle, a decent centre. You've got to build from inside out rather than outside in. The defence couldn't stop our 3 if we were lined up on the outside last year. So they've got massive fundamental issues in terms of how they win against very good teams. They've got to go and play the Baltimore Ravens twice. Pittsburgh might not have a quarterback, but they've got to go and play good teams in that division. It's a tough conference, and they need more than Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow. I think it's a nice idea, but there are far too many holes, I think, on the Cincinnati roster to put all your eggs, 44% of your cap. I can understand going Chase and Burrow. I like that.
Yep.
You've got maybe the best quarterback-wide receiver combination then in the whole of the league. But he's such a luxury to pay a number 2 receiver that amount of money when you think about what other number 2s, good number 2s, earn around the league. So I think they've massively miscalculated. I don't think it's a winning formula. And I think they're going to stay where they are. They'll win a few games. They'll be great to watch. But I don't think they can win a Super Bowl 44% on 2 receivers and a quarterback.
Let me throw this in there. Sorry, Neil, just quickly. Has Joe Burrow restructured his own deal?
No, I don't think so. I think Burrow's still on a really big contract. And you look at the reports and you join the dots. And this was definitely Joe Burrow pressuring the Bengals. And that was what I was going to ask you, Fletch, from a 30,000-foot point of view. When you look at sports teams, the Bengals can't do without Joe Burrow. But sometimes do you have to say no to your star player as he starts to demand stuff around them? Is this a slippery slope?
Do you know, I think one of the one sport in the world, I think, where you can have player power is the NBA, where you've got 5 starters on the floor. If you're LeBron James, you're saying to the front office, I'm going to come and play for you. You're going to sign him and him. The other 2 are fine, and we'll get you to the NBA Finals. There's far too many moving parts on a 53-man NFL roster to have one guy saying, I want these 2, and then we can't really have anybody else because that's what I want. I think player power can be really effective in a sport where numbers aren't too high. And I mean in terms of personnel, but I think when you're allowing one person to dictate a roster, an NFL roster to this level, based on the fact that you've only got 56% of your cap for 50 other people, then I think that's a very, very dangerous position to be in. I don't know really where that kind of player power would be played out elsewhere in a team sport of that size. You couldn't do that in the Premier League or the Champions League. You couldn't get away with it because there's too many people you've got to pay. I think this is a really dangerous situation. I think NBA, yes. NFL like this, I think it should be a no. I think they've got to be stronger as an organisation to say no to that, Vern.
So let me ask
Pick
you
up
this
on
then.
what you said, Vernon. Let me just pick up on what you said, and then you kind of mentioned there the I guess it's almost like the fantasy football building. This feels like fantasy football moves, just loading up on skill position players. Look at what the Eagles did with their offensive line, defensive line. The 2 years they won the Super Bowl, both years they won the Super Bowl, they were 8 deep on the defensive line. They were strong across the offensive line. They built from the inside out. But this feels like a fantasy football move, Vern.
Yeah, I think it does. And those gaps that they've got to fill, they're either going to be rookies or they're going to be veterans who are looking for one more year.
Yeah.
So, what is there on the market that's going to fill those gaps, especially on the defense? I mean, you're looking at wear and tear there, or you're looking at kids who are coming in who need some serious coaching up.
Well, and Trey Hendrickson led the NFL in sacks, and he wants a new deal. He's going to say, "Well, you paid all that money to those guys.
There you go.
You can't have that.
Watch how much
Well, I
defense
can't-
wins
20 million.
championships now, guys.
Yeah. What I
can't
can't
pay-
understand, though, if you're Burrow and you've had the injuries he's had as an NFL starter, I can't believe you've not gone to the owner or the general manager and said, you better build me an offensive line. I can live without T. Higgins, but I can't live without a top-class left tackle because I'm getting hurt and I'm missing already more games than I should be missing because we can't block anybody. Now, it's okay having Chase and Higgins, but if the backup is throwing the ball to them, then it's a little bit of a waste of time because you're not going to win anyway. So the only way this is going to work is to keep Burrow healthy. And I think until they deal with that situation, then they're going to be what they are now. Which is, they're all right, but they're not good enough.
Aaron Rodgers steps in for Burrow at the Bengals.
There you go. But this is Burrow turns up. Burrow turns up at games ice cold and full of confidence, oozing confidence. He should be saying, give me Nick Westbrook-Akina from the Tennessee Titans and I'll make him a star. Don't worry about T. Higgins. But he's gone exactly the way you guys have said. And I think maybe this is a head scratcher. We'll get some. Let's move on. We'll get to some off-season head scratchers in a minute. Let's all pick a move we liked in free agency. If there's something we really like these teams doing and building. Vern, do you want to kick us off here?
I'm going to go Deebo Samuel. I think he's a real versatile player. I think he can do whatever you want him to do. Whatever you ask of Deebo Samuel, he can do it. He's a big physical presence. And it reminds me very much of the old school Randy Moss. You know, even though he's a bit bigger than Randy Moss physically, he's as tall, he's as statuesque, and I think he can grab a ball down. I think he's quick enough. Obviously, it's all there in the books. He played running back as well. I think that is a very, very shrewd move. I think it's a really good one. And I think he's going to have a standout year this year, mate. I really, really do. Yeah,
Washington are being aggressive. They traded for Laramie Tunsil as well, the all-pro tackle from the Houston Texans.
You've got a quarterback who's just won Rookie of the Year, who's flying high. He's got a great head coach who's obviously nurturing him. They've got a great defense that's going to get better. And now you add Deebo Samuel to an already pretty decent wide receiving core with a couple of good running backs. I think they'll be pushing the Eagles.
Yep. Fletch, for you?
Well, it's kind of an unfashionable move, but I think it's the best move that any team in terms of need has made this offseason. And it's the Chicago Bears trading a draft pick next year, not this year, next year, for the all-pro left guard Joe Thuney. I think he's going to be a tone setter in the locker room. I think he's going to make all of those around him better. He's going to help Caleb Williams understand blitzes. The protection's going to be a lot better. And I think based on the fact they coupled that with Drew Dolman from the Atlanta Falcons, who was the best centre available in free agency and probably a top 6 centre in the NFL. The big weakness on the Bears team was the offensive line. It was the middle of the offensive line, the guards and the centre. They've got 2 guards and a centre before the draft. But I think the impact that Joe Thuney can have, and I know they've got to restructure his contract, but his impact on that team, the line, the offense, and most importantly on Caleb Williams, I think he's going to be astronomical. I think he'd be huge.
Can I just quickly fire in here? Let me get your opinion on Caleb Williams. Fletch, we've seen him live. Neil, you have as well.
Yeah.
Is he the real deal? Do you think he's the real deal? Do you think he can be the future of the Chicago Bears?
100%. I really liked him. And again, it was a small sample size at Tottenham, and they didn't win a game for 2 months after that. But there were times when he was really special. Made those kind of throws that were Mahomes-like. I know there was those comparisons coming out of the draft, a little bit unfair. I saw it in training camp. Plays that just, I sat next to Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated in the stands in the middle of the summer. I was just like, did that happen? Did he do that? He is special. 68 times he was sacked. That speeds up your clock. It speeds up your decision making. It affects your confidence. It makes you throw different because you don't step into stuff. I believe he's the real deal. And I'm really excited by the moves. They added Jonah Jackson was the other one. Fletch via trade from the Rams at guard, the other guard you mentioned. So I do think he's special. What do you think, Fletch?
I think his rookie year was actually better than anybody gives him credit for based on what Neil's just said. They had a lame duck head coach who was voted by the players this offseason as the worst head coach in the league. He got the worst score back from the NFLPA review that they do. They got through offensive coordinators the way that Vern gets through Ethernet cables during the course of the season. and he was still able. If you think about his last drive of the season, after all that, it was to take the ball at Lambeau Field on the road and drive them to a winning field goal to beat the Packers for the first time in ages. He was still doing what he needed to be doing at the end of the season in the face of all of that. He's now got maybe the best offensive mind in the league in terms of creativity, and he's got the ability to be one of the most creative quarterbacks in the league. I think if you put those two together, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, they could have an absolute field day. And I'll make this statement now. I think at the end of this year, coming up, people will be higher on Caleb Williams than they are on Jaden Daniels now.
Which is how it was supposed to be when they were coming out. That's what we expected. I sat down, fellas, and interviewed Matt Eberflus in the summer. We did a one-on-one with the then Bears head coach. I might as well have been in the garden talking to the daffodils. Honestly, he spent 3 minutes at the start. I hope the Bears don't watch this. He spent 3 minutes at the start telling me how he likes doing beekeeping and collecting and making his own honey. So, hey, at least he's got something to do while he's not in the NFL anymore. Matt Eberflus. I'll tell you my quick one that I liked. I like what the Denver Broncos did. They took a chance on Drake Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga, two defenders.
Sorry, Neil. I watched and observed Greenlaw in training camp last year. What a guy. Not only is he rapid off the ball, he gets to his assignment so quickly, but he's so physical in practice. And it's very rare that you see that these days. There's a couple of times where he was taken to one side. Listen, this is practice.
Calm down a bit.
Do you know what I mean? We're not firing the Arsenal just yet. Let's just calm down a little bit. But then on the flip side of the coin, he was so courteous with the fans. Like my girls,
cool.
we went watching, and he spent time with them explaining what was going on. Absolute gentleman.
He obviously tore his Achilles in that Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs, running onto the field. He was just running on to the start of the possession. So there's a bit of an injury risk with him, a bit with Hufanga, but I think they're really good additions, worth a gamble. And Evan Ingram is a still really productive tight end, plays like a third wide receiver from Jacksonville. And this is just a reminder, fellas, if you're up by 10 in a Super Bowl, not once, but twice, you better win one of those, because the 49ers have now lost 11 of 22 starters from that Super Bowl from 2 years ago against the Chiefs.
That's
changes
crazy.
Quick.
Astonishing numbers. And when you think, we looked at that roster and just said how low that it was, and as you say, they didn't turn that into a Super Bowl win. You wonder how long it's going to be before they get back again.
Any head scratchers from the off-season so far? I've got one, which is, it's not even team-related. This is player-related. I'm surprised Travis Kelce wants to come back for more.
Oh, you've got to, Neil. You've got to.
Because of the way he went out,
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely. He's got to come back. He can't finish his career as well as he's done. Some will debate and argue that he's probably the greatest tight end ever.
Mm-hmm.
But with a spotlight on him like it is, some might say because of his partner, because of Taylor Swift. But I think he got found out in all those viral clips that went around after the Super Bowl, and it was embarrassing. It was really, really embarrassing. When you've got a player like Patrick Mahomes scrambling around and you're stood still, watching from only 5-10 yards away, you can't end your career on a game like that.
I was just wondering, because, like, obviously, I've got milk that turns quicker than him now. So that, you know, his skills are diminishing, but he's 35 and he's got this podcast deal with his brother, which is going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But I guess as I kind of check myself, Fletch, the competitive nature that got him, that separates those people from us normal people, is what makes it hard for him to leave the league, especially to Vernon's point, the way he's going to have to go out if he did. But he's obviously already said he's coming back now.
You're a long time retired.
Yeah.
So I think he wants to milk it for as much as he can. I think one of the issues is, though, him coming back is probably the reason why they've had to trade Joe Tooney to the Bears, because they got to re-sign Trey Smith. So they've got to pay Trey Smith. He's now the most highest paid guard in the league. They've also got to pay Kelce, who's not taken a pay cut to come back. So Kelce's on this final season deal on top money, even though he's not going to play like that. I think it's okay, but I think sometimes the fairy tale comes at a cost. And I think in this case, it's cost them a key offensive lineman to get Kelce back because they can't pay everybody.
So I think
progress
stopper. You could be a progress stopper.
Yes, and I think that's the worry. I think it's nice, and everybody wants a happy ending, but I think in this case, it's probably not helped them in cap terms because they've now got to pay him an awful lot of money. They're going to pay him a lot more than he's going to deliver next year, which is never a good sign.
Well, hang on a minute, Fletch. I'll throw
year.
something back at you that you guys quoted and you enjoyed when we were doing our Super Bowl predictions. You talked a lot about Andy Reid and how he can adjust and adapt. Obviously, the Super Bowl didn't go their way, but you've got a head coach there who will obviously know what Travis Kelce can do now with Patrick Mahomes, and they'll adjust, and he will be as useful a weapon as he has been in the past. I guarantee that. I guarantee that. You watch.
I don't know. He averaged 8 yards a catch last year, and where I say he's a progress stopper, Noah Gray is actually one of the unheralded tight ends in the NFL. Noah Gray and his snap count fell through the floor once they got to the playoffs. It was almost like you do the regular season and then Kelce came in for the playoffs, which was fine. He had a good game against Houston, over 100 yards, but then he did nothing in the championship game, nothing in the Super Bowl. That would be my worry, that's all.
I think as well, if you're going to have
Neil.
If you're going to have sustained success, you've got to be ahead of the cap rather than behind it. And I'm starting to look at them now, and I'm starting to wonder how Brett Veach can do that because he's having to restructure Mahomes every year. Creed Humphrey's the highest paid centre in the league. Trey Smith's the highest paid guard in the league. Travis Kelce's probably the highest paid tight end in the league. It means that elsewhere, when you're struggling for wide receivers, when you've got issues and you've got to pay key defensive contributors, you're paying Chris Jones, who's probably the highest paid defensive tackle in the league. I'd forgotten about him. So you can't consistently have the highest paid player in their position on your roster and expect to have enough around them. And I think when you look at some of these teams on the rise, they're not going to get by on talent alone, Kansas City, because there are teams as stacked as they are. And what we've seen twice in Super Bowls, when you don't protect Mahomes, he becomes human. And you've just taken away Joe Tooney, best lineman on that, the team MVP, by the way. He's voted team MVP on a team that's got Patrick Mahomes. The left guard was named team MVP by the players on a team where you've got Patrick Mahomes. They've just lost the MVP because you've got some fella coming back for some triumphant farewell tour with his superstar partner in the stands, which I just don't think they need that now. I think we've done that. Now you've got to, what are you going to do now to get past Philly? How are you going to fend off Josh Allen and the Bills? What are you going to do with the Baltimore Ravens? I just think you've got to look bigger picture. Kelsey, get yourself off. Get on the settee. Go and do the podcast. Go and spend some time with Jason. Come on.
Go and play golf with Aaron Rodgers, according to Vernon. Any other head scratchers? Anything else?
I've got a head scratcher, and it really rubbed me up the wrong way. The way that the Rams have treated Matthew Stafford. I didn't like that. I thought it was really disrespectful because he came in and he won a Super Bowl with them. And then they've said, it felt like, well, we're not really bothered whether you stay or whether you go. So go and have a mooch around. But when you come back, we're going to pay you nothing. You've made your money. Do you know what I mean? I didn't like the way that whole thing was dealt with. And obviously Cooper Kupp is a massive piece of that jigsaw as well. So I think the Rams, for a franchise, I think just let themselves down a little bit there with the way that they treated Matthew Stafford.
You just have to be careful with how that stuff's perceived from the outside. Now, we don't know what exactly went, you go and test the market, but we always want you back. But it's that perception from the outside. It does look like, and these players, yes, you wonder why they sometimes haggle over $1 million here, $1 million there. It's a respect thing a lot of the time. They want that respect, don't they? And I don't know if he had that. I do like the addition of Devontae Adams, though. I think he can still play. I think this will be very interesting in Sean McVay's offense.
Yeah, I think NFL globally is the sport where players realise it's a business. It is a business. It's a money business. It's all about the calculator when it comes out of the cap, and I think a lot of players, when they move, they do have a certain affiliation with teams. There's very few players that spend all of their career with one team these days because it is a business and players do move around, and it's a buyer's and it's a seller's market. So you've just got to go out there and treat it like that. And then I think for the welfare of the player themselves, if they have that mindset, then it's not too bad.
My head scratcher is Myles Garrett. I have no idea why Myles Garrett needs $40 million a year to stay in Cleveland. If I'm Myles Garrett, I've got more money than I ever thought I was going to earn in my life. I want to be remembered for winning something. The Browns are so far away from winning. He's gone from being absolutely adamant that he wasn't going to play another down for the Cleveland Browns, and everybody was having bets as to where he was going to go. A lot of options out there for him. He then agrees a new contract. I think it affects the way people see him as an individual, because you've gone from having sympathy with him for wanting to leave that franchise to win, to now you're saying, well, you're only in it for the money anyway, because now they've rolled a load of dollars out in front of you. You're quite happy to stay in Cleveland. I don't think it helps him with the fan base in Cleveland. I don't think it helps his legacy. I think it's greed. And I think if it was about that in the first place, he should have been a lot more honest. I can't believe he's allowed his image to be tainted to that point where it was just a case of putting enough dollars in front of him and all of a sudden Cleveland was a great place again.
His press conference was pretty contentious, and that was put to him a few times because he almost cut a sympathetic figure, as you say, during Super Bowl week. Nobody had a problem with what he was putting forward. It's like, absolutely, Miles, get yourself out of Cleveland, go and win one of these, because this is what it's about this week. It was in the days leading up to the Super Bowl. Everyone's talking about the Eagles and the Chiefs. And now it's just like, so you really just wanted another 4 or 5 million a year? You know, unless he's been told, like you mentioned right at the start, unless he's been told we're getting Shedeur Sanders or we're getting Cam Ward or Aaron Rodgers is coming, we're going to turn this around. We were a playoff team 2 years ago. Unless it's that, if it is about the money, then it is a big, big disappointment because, you know, this was, I felt he was talking about championships, legacy, and now Bernie's just talking dollars.
Talking business decisions, Neil.
Yeah,
that's
fair
what
enough,
it is.
I suppose. This is why it's easier when we're sat here and they're the ones putting their bodies on the line. Let's finish off. Obviously, this podcast is in association with Elite Sports Travel. We all love working with the whole team there, getting out to the States, being with the fans on the road. We'll do that again this year. And we will do another episode, I think, before the draft. I might have just signed us up for something, but we'll do one before the draft, which is in Green Bay at the end of April at Lambeau Field. So it got me thinking, fellas, as we combine the fact Elite Sports Travel can get fans out to any game, anywhere in the US. Lambeau was always, I mean, I would recommend anyone go to Lambeau Field. That's a bucket list stadium. What are your bucket list stadiums that you either really have to go to, or is there any, because I don't know, have you all been to all of them? I haven't been to all of them. I mean, I'll give you mine, Arrowhead. I still haven't got to Arrowhead. I've got to go to a Chiefs game. So that's the one for me. But any few, Fletch starts off.
In the NFL, I think the only one that I've not been to, well, there's two that I've not been to that I'd like to go to. I'd like to go and experience the 12th man in Seattle.
Yes.
So I'd like to see a big Seahawks game and listen to the noise. And I quite fancy going to watch a game in Baltimore or Pittsburgh as well, because I've not been to either of those. You know, real...
Pittsburgh's great. When they got the old towels flowing. Yeah. I was there in December last year. It was freezing, towels. You're looking out, you see the river and everything. It's brilliant. Yeah,
they'd be mine. I think they're the ones, and I think I'd feel the same. Because I've been to Lambeau, I agree with you, but I think I'd feel the same. It's just a shame they're not at the old place where Franco Harris had the immaculate reception and all that. But it's still a real heavy duty, dyed in the wool NFL town, isn't it? To be in Pittsburgh, I think I'd enjoy that. Yeah.
Fern?
Yeah, I'd go with Seattle, especially now that Adam's there. I've got relatives there as well. Not been to Seattle. Baltimore is superb because it's on the harbour there. It's on the bay. It's a lovely walk round, and then it's just there right in front of you. The fans are absolutely fantastic in Baltimore, as you can expect. I love the LA Stadium. SoFi is so special because it's probably the most modern one, really. I've not been to Vegas. I'd like to try that one. I kind of like the old school. I really do. I'd like to go to Kansas City, but I'd also like to go to Mile High. I'd love to go to Denver and see what that's like.
Yeah.
Do you know, if I could have my time back again, I would love to go to the old RFK for a Redskins Cowboys game.
Remember when he used to bounce?
He used to bounce. Yeah, absolutely. I went to
Candlestick.
I went to Candlestick. So I went to Candlestick. Very first game I ever went, 93. It was a pre-season game, and I was in a T-shirt and shorts. I thought, it's California. It's August. It's sunny. And, you know, they had the hill, the opposite side of the stadium. And there was a fella sat next to me, season ticket holder, and he went, "You're in trouble." I was like, "It's California. I'm fine." And I didn't know the whole San Francisco thing anyway. He went, when that sun goes behind that hill, you're going to actually hear it hit the ground with a clunk. And he said, and then you're going to be freezing. And I was. But it was fantastic. It had that weird bit in the corner that was kind of where the baseball thing was. But, iconic stadiums like that.
Do you know the great thing is, when I was in Washington, and obviously the stadium where the Commanders play now is out of town. I mean, it's a good, 45 minutes to an hour away from the centre of Washington, D.C. But I drove past RFK, and it sat there like a relic, as it was, but like a relic. And I think at the time, the Washington football team, the soccer team, was playing there, so it was still being used. But it was like this relic of days gone by. And as you drove past it, you could imagine what it must have been like when the fans were going in with the hog noses and what have you, and Theismann and Riggins were in there. And I felt the same when I went to the Super Bowl in Houston. And the Astrodome just sits empty next to the arena. And I was desperate to go inside the Astrodome. You can't go in. It's a health hazard, I think, because of asbestos and stuff. But even the AstroTurf is still in there. It's just rolled up and the seats are still there. But it's just derelict. And I would have given anything to go and have a walk around the Astrodome just to say I'd been in there. Because what was it known as the eighth wonder of the world or whatever?
Yeah, that's right.
That was it.
I remember Evel Knievel being in there, jumping over buses and that kind, and it's still there. And you think, just let's go in, let's go. Well, you can't. It's dangerous. No, I don't care. I'm going in the Astrodome.
Let me in there.
But it was still there. Yeah,
brilliant. Listen, fellas, Vernon was late on. I've got to be early leaving. I've got another podcast to do. I'm very sorry.
Let me tell you one thing before we go. Speaking to Ben and the team at Elite Sports Travel, you've just mentioned all the trips that we'd like to do.
Yes.
There is a rumour doing the rounds that we might be going together this year. There is a rumour doing the rounds that we could be going as a trio this year, which I'm unbelievably excited about.
It was the only reason I did this podcast.
Yes.
To blag myself onto another trip.
We're going to and we've got to say that if you fancy going to the Super Bowl, then you can inquire about that trip now. That's the one that's up and running at the minute. Ben and the guys are waiting to speak to you. Santa Clara, just outside San Francisco, Sunday the 8th of February.
Stunning stadium.
Yeah, brilliant. And if you fancy being on the trip, give the guys a shout at Elite Sports Travel. They can fill you in. There's various packages. You can do it various ways. They will explain it to you. And if that's on your bucket list, we've talked a bit about bucket lists in terms of stadiums. If that as an event is on your bucket list, then speak to the guys. They can fill you in. Elite Sports Travel, Ben and the team, and they'll make sure that can happen for you. And when we know where we're going and when we're going, and confirm that all three of us are going, we'll let you know, and you can come with us and have a rare old time.
Brilliant. Fletch, you have done all the housekeeping. All that remains
Goes to manual cost check.
Yeah, exactly. All it remains is to say thank you, Vern. Thank you, Fletch. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll be back in the middle of April to preview the 2025 NFL Draft. We'll see you then. Bye for now.